Welcome. We're here today with Toronto-based lawyer Timothy Kinnaird, and he's going to be answering some questions you may have about divorce as it pertains to child custody and support. So, Timothy, when children are involved, what has to happen with their support before a person can get a divorce?
Well, Dee Dee, there has to be some sort of reasonable arrangements made for the support of the children before a court will grant you a divorce. Those arrangements should be incorporated into a divorce judgment that the parties will consent to. So you will need to have a written agreement or court order to enforce and confirm these support payments. You could write up an agreement between yourselves, but there's always a big risk it may be legally defective, and you could end up having your divorce refused. That is why we, in addition to online divorce services, we can offer you a simple yet legally binding agreement, which will ensure your online divorce gets granted with respect to child support and custody.
What are some typical arrangements when it comes to custody of the children?
There are generally three different ways of defining custody. There's shared parenting, joint custody, and sole custody. When it comes to shared parenting, this means that each parent will have the children for approximately half the time. When parents can share the children this way, there is normally no child support payable between the parties from one parent to the other if they both share the expenses equally for the children. Now, the second option, joint custody, is another way of maintaining the legal involvement of both parents when it comes to making major decisions about their children. If both parents can agree about what's best for the children, joint legal custody is preferred by the courts because it ensures that both parents stay involved legally in the upbringing of their children. Now, the last form of custody, sole custody, allows one parent to make the final decisions about their children alone, though they still have a duty to consult with the other parent when it comes to major decisions. So whether you have joint custody or sole custody, child support is usually paid by the parent who does not have the children living with him or her. So if you are concerned about defining the rights and responsibilities of each of you when it comes to with who the children are to be raised and who will pay support, we can provide you with a complete and comprehensive child custody and support agreement, which will include specific access arrangements, child support payments and custody, and with whom the child will reside. With such a signed agreement, you can then proceed to obtaining your own online divorce, which would include this agreement in the divorce judgment. Now, by including the agreement in the judgment, you will have not only your divorce, but a binding and enforceable agreement about who has custody and who must pay and how much.
Why is it important that I get some sort of agreement in place?
It's important because if the issues get complicated and there are specific concerns about schooling, residency, religion, etc., you need to be properly advised and have those expectations enshrined into a binding agreement between the parties. Now, you are welcome to draft your own agreement regarding child custody and support. However, you run the risk of applying for the divorce only to find out that the agreement is defective in some way, and your divorce application may well be refused, which will end up costing you a lot more money in the end than you anticipated. I would suggest that let us draft a legally binding agreement for you and your divorce is assured. So if you are in need of a simple child support and custody agreement and have your terms made into a court order, we're able to provide both of these services at a reasonable and fair rate. So I invite our viewers to please look at our menu of services or call our support line, and one of our support agents will be able to guide you through the process and choose the best option for your situation. This will leave you with the peace of mind knowing that your agreement is legally binding and enforceable should any future disagreements arise.
How much child support should I be paying, Timothy?
If the parents can agree that the children will be in the custody of one, then the other must pay that parent child support based on his or her income. We've provided a specialized child support calculator that will determine the amount of child support based on the income of the parent paying the support.
So what if I have questions about my spouse's income because either he's changed jobs or he hasn't been upfront with me about how much he's now making?
Well, Dee Dee, if you can't get satisfactory financial information from your spouse, then it's advised that you consult our legal team of lawyers so that we can ensure an accurate determination of income. Again, taking these steps now will ensure that you get the optimal amount of child support. And I've seen way too many cases where a parent has settled for far less for their children when the other has lied about the money he or she is actually making.
So besides paying just monthly child support, what other child support costs are there?
Both parents are financially responsible for any special expenses of their children. These special expenses usually involve medical, educational, or other usual expenses such as sports, piano lessons, etc. for the children. These expenses are shared by the parents in proportion to their income. For example, if one parent makes double what the other does, he or she must pay twice as much. Now, major expenses usually require the consent of the other parent and must be reasonable given the incomes of the parents and, of course, their lifestyles.
So Tim, how long does one have to continue to pay child support for?
You usually have to maintain supporting your children until they reach the age of majority, 18. And thereafter, if they're enrolled full-time in a registered educational program for a first degree, for example, a bachelor's degree or a college diploma. Now, child support will also be required if you have a child with special needs. For example, somebody who suffers from a medical or a psychological disability. The support may be required for as long as that child is unable to be self-supporting.
So do we have to get these issues about child support and income resolved before I can get an uncontested divorce?
You bet, Dee Dee, and Do-It-Yourself Online Divorce Canada can help you every step of the way with our trained staff to answer any and all questions you may have.
Okay, and finally, Tim, in terms of taxes, are child support payments tax deductible?
Child support payments are not tax deductible, and the spouse with whom the child lives usually will get to claim the child benefit tax credit.
Okay, so I'll bet the first thing that the person who's left with the children must be thinking after separating is, how am I going to care for my children?
That's always been the number one concern I see in my practice, and my advice has always been, don't wait to get it settled. Don't think that simple decency and doing what's right will guide the other person, especially if the separation was difficult. Get that person to sign on a dotted line as soon as possible so you have a legally enforceable agreement to guarantee your children get fed and clothed while you work out all the other issues posed by the breakdown of the family. So when the big break happens, get that child support and custody agreement now and in writing. And I'll tell you this, our simple and easy to understand agreement may help you get that peace of mind about your children secured.
That sounds like some good advice. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome, Dee Dee.